So as we walk through the woods here to try to find our stone monument, it might actually be very hard to find, if not impossible. The last time there was a mention of it, like a first-hand mention, was way back in 1893, and then just nothing. So I'm not 100% if we'll find it. Actually, we probably won't find it, but along the way I found a map of the area and some old sketches and stuff, so we can look at pictures of the old farms and the people that lived here, and of course we'll read from the paper to see what the locals thought of it at the time. So let's continue on.
On July 4th, 1893, the Daily Mail ran the first report. For a number of years, and especially this summer, a mysterious stone or monument had been attracting a good deal of attention in Pickering. Mr. D.H. Every of Pickering called at the Mail office and gave a description of the monument. Located on the east bank of the Duffins Creek on Lot 13, surrounding it, the ground forms a natural amphitheater. The monument rises about 8 feet above the level of the ground and is about 8 feet every way. It was evidently built square and is not a stone proper, but made up of a number of stones, cemented together with cement resembling mortar. The stones are small, and just such stones are to be picked up in the fields. The monument is covered with moss, and a large pine tree has grown on the upper part of it. This tree has been cut down, but the stump still remains. The paper even claims that, within the memory of the oldest settler, it is said there was a hole to be seen in the top of the monument filled with lead. But then says this hole, however, cannot be seen now, as it is overgrown with moss. The paper then speculates on its purpose, saying the surroundings are admirably suited for the holding of a ceremony such as savages delight in. They say this is published for the information of local archaeologists. If some of the surrounding soil were removed, perhaps a clue to the origin of the monument might be found. 3 days later, the Pickering News quotes the article from the Mail and says that, "We vouch for the truth of the clipping," and go on to report, "For the information of those who desire to view the monument, we might say that it is to be found on Thomas Field's farm, and the public are welcome to examine the structure at any time."
And as we're walking through the woods here on this barely marked trail to the general direction where I think is located, I have up on screen here some AI renditions of what it possibly could have looked like at the time and what potentially I'm looking for now.
A week later, on July 14th, the Pickering News followed up, clearing any doubts of the monument's existence. That monument on Thomas's Field's premises has had many visitors during the present week, and those who have examined it find that the description given is perfectly correct. The stone or altar, or whatever it is about 14 foot square and is composed of small field stones securely cemented together by some kind of cement resembling mortar. Those doubting the existence of this masonry should visit the place and have their doubts dispelled. There was some talk of having this relic of a past century removed to Toronto. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice a discrepancy in the descriptions of the monument. On July 4th, the monument rises about 8 feet above the level of the ground and is about 8 feet every way. But on July 14th, the stone or altar, or whatever it is about 14 foot square. 8 feet every way one week and about 14 feet square the next. A little mystery within the mystery. To get a sense of the landscape around that time, I'll show you some hand-drawn sketches from the 1877 Illustrated Historical Atlas of Ontario County. Here's some of the lot maps from that atlas, showing the property lines and owners along the creek area only a few years before the monument was reported. Spink Mills, sitting on Concession 2, Lot 17. This was a 5-story industrial powerhouse churning out 250 barrels of flour a day, with trains pulling right next to the building, and the creek flowing through massive stone arches. Located upstream on Concession 4, lots 31 and 32, we have Truman P. White, where he harnessed the exact same creek to power a massive flour mill, a sprawling woolen factory, a sawmill, and a copper shop. Look at the towering smokestacks and the water channels. White bought the original 1820 pioneer mill from a man named John Major and spent decades expanding it into this sprawling company town. If you look closely, you can see the name Major Mills on one of the buildings. Earlier pioneers spent the 1820s and 30s building all along this river. When those earlier mills were abandoned, rebuilt, burned, or replaced, and the land was sold off to farmers like Thomas Field, anything made of wood would have rotted away, while the heavy stone foundations remained. But let's remember that Duffins Creek wasn't just factories and smokestacks. Outside of those industrial pockets, Pickering Township was fundamentally a farming country. Just look at these 4 sketches showing farms across the township, from James L. Palmer's property on Concession 2, right near the village, up to Alexander Waddell's Wood Hall on Concession 9. By the late 19th century, the land had been almost entirely cleared of its dense woods to make way for massive pastures, neat orchards, and split-rail fences. The landscape was tamed, cultivated, and wide open. While we don't have a photo of Field's exact farm, this is why the 1893 newspaper could simply print Thomas Field's name and invite the general public to come down and examine the stone monument. Getting to it didn't require a wilderness expedition. Just like the farms in these sketches, Field's property on Lot 13 would have been cleared, open pasture land. Curious locals could have simply driven their buggies down the concession road, stepped over a fence, and walked across an open field right to the edge of the creek to look at the mysterious monument. Unfortunately, that will be the last time I was able to find anything about our stone monument for another 101 years. After the 1893 coverage, it drops out of the record until Pam Pridgma writes an article about the monument 32 years ago in 1994, with nothing substantial turning up afterward.
There's so much greenery on these trails. Maybe it would have been better to come here in the fall when it'd be easier to see the ground. But we're here now, so we're going to continue our journey.
We can also quickly take a look at these aerial photographs from 1946. We can see exactly how the story survived in local lore. Even 50 years later, the farm field still swept right to the edge of the creek. This open landscape perfectly explains a story that was surfaced decades later in the 1990s. In May 1994, local writer Pam Pridgma revived the tale in a piece called Mystery on the Bank. She noted the Discovery Bay development had changed the landscape, and she repeated the claim that the newspaper over 100 years ago had called it a Jesuit's altar, on the unconfirmed speculation that it was built by early missionaries. Though there may still be another 1893 source that contains the wording, I just didn't find it. Also, that attempts were made in vain to blow it up with gunpowder. While the gunpowder detail isn't in the 1893 text, it actually has a strong kernel of historical plausibility. If this structure was a massive 8-foot mortared cube or a giant boulder sitting in the middle of a usable pasture or near a logging path, if a member of the Field family did try to blast the stubborn rocks apart to clear the riverbank and failed because the mortar was too tough, the local kids watching would have easily absorbed it into the myth. She also interviews an elderly gentleman who contacted the Ajax LACAC, aware of this intriguing landmark about 5 years ago. He described how, as a boy, he and his friends were drawn to the site by rumors that it was an Indian chief's tomb. Local youngsters believed that it contained bones, and many attempts were made to dig around the base to unearth its mystery. Mr. Field would chase the young boys away when their digging became too aggressive. If this elderly man was a boy in the 1920s or 1930s, he would have been being chased away by a son or grandson who inherited the Fields farm. It seems like the times have changed. From the papers declaring to everyone, "Come check out this monument," in the 1890s, to being chased off the land 40 years later. This also gives us something the 1893 paper can't: a second generation of witnesses who claim the structure was still physically present decades later. She closes the article by saying it is believed that this historic structure still stands on the shore of Duffins Creek. If those reading this article rediscover this curious historical site still standing on the east bank of Duffins Creek, please share its location with us all. After 1994, silence again.
Well, I'm standing on this log here, and I pretty well reached the end of this overgrown trail, which I don't think anyone has been on in quite a while. And as you can see, the foliage and stuff I gotta deal with. Again, I didn't really expect to find this monument just because it's all overgrown. You gotta imagine this all used to be plowed land, probably very easy to find. Now, trees and shrubs everywhere. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to find it, but it was still a fascinating journey. But there are trails through here, so perhaps somebody does know where it is, just not knowing the mystery surrounding it. And if you enjoyed this video, stick around, because I'll have more just like it.